All right. Welcome to this webinar. We'll be covering building dashboards in Easy Insight. As we go through, if you have any questions at any point, feel free to put them in on the Q&A and we'll answer them as we can. So, to start with, building a dashboard in Easy Insight. To begin with, go from the data source that you're building the dashboard in, click on Create and do Create Dashboard. This will take you to the Easy Insight Dashboard Builder. Depending on the age of your account, you may have the older version of the dashboard editor by default. You should have an option, if so, that looks like this, try your new dashboard editor. This webinar will be covering the new dashboard editor as opposed to the legacy. So, once you have the dashboard editor up, you can assemble a dashboard by finding the report you want in the left-hand list and dragging it into the dashboard. Drag it over to the section that colors in with green, and the report is added. If we want to add a second report to the dashboard, we can take it from the list and drag it in. If we drag it over, it'll replace. In this case, we'll go ahead and put it below. So there it goes ahead and adds the bar chart below the key performance indicator trend report. If we want to add a second report here, we can take bar chart 2, drag it in and put it to the right of bar chart, and it's added in. Since that one's pretty much duplicates the first bar chart, we could replace it by taking, for example, column with line, dragging it over bar chart 2, and it replaces. Now, in general, the use of your dashboard is going to be in what we call the end user view. So if we save our dashboard by clicking on the orange Save button, giving it a name, and then doing Navigate End User, it takes us to the end user version of this dashboard. This is what your users will typically interact with. If we want to put a filter on the dashboard, we can click on the Create Filter button. In this case, we'll go ahead and do a filter on current stage. We'll do multi-value, and we'll exclude the lost deals from our dashboard. By putting the filter at the dashboard level, it is applied to all of the reports in the dashboard. So in particular, if you have a filter you want to use across all the reports, you just put them at that dashboard level, not recreating it per report. As you can see, if we save the dashboard, and again go back to the end user, that filter is there, and closed lost is no longer in our reports. If we want to hide that filter from our end users, we could click on the current stage label, say Hide Filter on End User View. We save, and when we now go back to the end user, the filter doesn't show up. If we want to have multiple pages on our dashboard, we can click on the link here that says Add Multiple Pages. We can then add a second page by doing Add Page, clicking over to the new page, and putting in, for example, this tree report. We could rename our first tab by clicking on the Edit link, doing Rename, and putting in the new name. So we'll call it Overview. We can save the dashboard. Once again, go back to the end user, and we see that we now have two tabs, Overview and Deal Tree. If you need to reorder your pages, you can go to Page Options, Reorder Pages. You can drag them around to reorder in case you want to move the positions of different tabs. You can also do subpages by doing Edit and Add Subpages. We could put in a nested page. So we could go ahead and again add in a second one. We can put in report here, save. And now, when we click on Overview, we have page 1, we have interactive crosstab, and then we still have Deal Tree as a separate page from those. Again, feel free to jump in with questions at any point here if you have any. So one thing you can do with pages is set up a filter that applies just to that page. So for example, let's set up a filter that only applies to everything contained in Overview. So we could go ahead and add a filter on sales rep. We'll put it on Jim. So now, when we go back to our end user, well, in this case, apparently Jim doesn't have a whole ton of data, but it's applying that filter to everything in Overview. Deal Tree is only affected by the dashboard level filters, but that page level filter is being applied here. Any questions around that behavior? If we change it, for example, from Jim to Lisa, it updates accordingly. And if you want to then get rid of a page, all you have to do is click on the edit link and do delete page. If we want to get rid of the filter, click on the filter label and do remove the filter. So if we now save, we're back more to where we started. All right. Next, let's talk about dashboard visibility. By default, any dashboard you set up in Easy Insight requires your users to be logged in to access and view the dashboard. If you want to set a dashboard up such that it does not require users to log in, you can go to Configuration, Dashboard Properties, and you'll see you have some options here. Publicly visible. If you check this option, you can then send someone the URL and it will allow them to access the dashboard without logging in. Obviously, this is off by default, but you can enable if you want to set it up that way. Beyond that, we also have what we call the dashboard distribution, which enables you to set up a URL specific to a user that they can access without logging into the system. If we do export the dashboard and then go to distribute dashboard, this is the page for managing this functionality. We could check allow users to access by URL without login. And what this does is it gives us a URL that is then specific to each user. So because we have data level security set up on this user, JBO Jim4, when he logs into, or when he goes to this URL, it will automatically apply a filter of sales rep Jim to what he sees. So even though he's not logged in, it's still identifying who he is and applying data level security such that he's only seeing his data. We can also add additional users through here. So for example, we could add we set up the persona of sales rep. We assign it to Lisa. And then when we return to our list, we now see that there's a login, there's a user set up for Lisa with a URL specific to her, so that when she goes to this URL, she only sees her data. And if we want to then just change it back so that users do have to log in before accessing the dashboard, we can click on the link require users to log in, and we're back to our previous behavior. If you want to set the dashboard up for embedding into some external system, you can use the export the dashboard embed dashboard link to provide you with some additional help to set up an iframe. And the iframe will specifically reference a /embed version of the dashboard, which strips out most of the rest of the interface and really just shows the dashboard by itself. So this can be useful for embedding the display of the dashboard into an external system you may have. All right. Any questions around anything so far? Okay. Next, let's look at how we can do some styling to this dashboard. If you go to your account skin found under account settings and then account skin under visuals, you can then go to the dashboards section and you'll have a variety of different options for configuring the look and feel of your dashboards. So page style. This is how the tabs for different sections show up. The default at this point is side menu, but if we change it over, for example, to tabs, and we save our change, and then we go back to our dashboard, you see that it shows up with tabs at the top. All right, if we go back to our skin again, the fill color is, this is what's going to be used as the background color for that page navigation section. So if we want to change it to a red and save, it updates accordingly. We have a multitude of other options for customizing styles here. You have the background color for the title area of reports, text color, the border color for the title, a background color for the report itself. One thing we've more recently added is we do have some pre-built skins, which are available here. So what you can do is take one of these skins and add it to your account. So for example, I could go ahead and add this one, this dark blue. And then if I go back here, It's set up as a separate skin from our default one, so we can toggle it without destroying what we have as our default settings. So if we now go back to our dashboard, it now shows it with a dark background and dark background, white text, so on. If we want to revert back to our original skin, we can just go back here to Account Skins, toggle primary is back on, and we're back to where we started. All right, what else can we do with dashboards? You'll see that we have some options here under Dashboard Elements. Text allows us to put arbitrary text into our dashboard. So for example, we could drag this in above KPIs and fill in some text. We can save the dashboard. And now in Enduser, our text shows up here. If we want to customize the text of the dashboard, we can click on Text Options, do Edit Text, or do Properties. We can then we can increase the font size, we can change alignment, and we can change font color. So we can save. And the text shows up larger. So a question about when will the recording be sent afterwards? If you email us directly, we can provide a link to the recording later this afternoon. Otherwise, we'll be sending out a link with it with an email on Monday. If we want to add an image to our dashboard, we can drag an image in. Let's see. We're going to quickly grab an image. We can save the dashboard. And there we get an image showing up on the dashboard. All right. Okay, next, let's go ahead and go through a repeater. This one is a little bit more involved. What the repeater does is enable you to have a particular report display repeatedly based on a certain filter value. So for example, we drag repeater in, we'll go ahead and repeat a report. We'll select a report of, we'll do our column with line chart again. We'll choose sales rep as our field, and then we'll display it 2 columns at a time. So what does this look like as a result? When we go to the end user, and the joys of demo, if something did not work with that, we will investigate that one and get back to you. Let's see, moving on from that, additional options for editing the dashboard. We can do configuration Version history will enable you to go back to previous versions of the dashboard. So in this case, that particular change did not work very well. So if we click on the previous revision, goes back, and we can revert to the previous version of that dashboard. Within here, you have some additional options as far as, let's see, most of this is going to overlap with the account skin. You do have some options for customizing the header area. With your embeds, you can choose whether or not the embedded dashboard should allow users to refresh data, to export the dashboard. You can use refresh interval and page cycle interval for TV display. So if you just want a dashboard to automatically refresh data every n seconds, and or you want the page to you want it to cycle to the next page every every certain number of seconds. Your dashboard as a whole can be exported to PDF. You can also set up your dashboard for recurring email as PDF, inline PNG, or inline HTML. Any questions around anything as we've gone through it here? You can reorganize reports on your dashboard by dragging them around. So there we can do a swap to move bar chart over in the place of where column with line was. If we want to remove something, we can click on options and do remove. We also have a number of options under properties. So for example, if we want to set a report to a certain fixed height in pixels, we could put this in here. If we want to turn off the report title area, we can just uncheck show label. So if we uncheck that, there you see that the report title does not show up anymore. Let's see. If you need to copy a dashboard, you can do save a copy of the dashboard. Just enter the new name and it'll save a copy. If you need to merge in a separate dashboard as a new page, you can do quick actions, merge another dashboard, and that will take the other selected dashboard and add it as one or more pages into the existing dashboard you have here. Let's see. You can also add icons to your tabs. So if you do edit, let's see. If we go back to the side menu, so sorry, the assigning icons only works from the side menu navigation. But if you are using that, you can do edit, assign icon. do find icon, and then choose an icon you want to display. So we can do that for both. And it appears accordingly. And I'm not sure I have anything else really for this. Any questions before we go ahead and end this webinar? We'll give one more minute for any questions, and if none, we'll go ahead and call it a day here. Yes, so we do have a question, which is, could we go over the personal views? So that's kind of what we did with the export the dashboard, distribute dashboard. So maybe just take a step back there as far as what you have to do to start with. If you go to account settings and to personas, this is how you set up templates to control what somebody can see. So in this case, we created a sales rep persona with a filter on the sales rep field. In our user configuration, we've assigned the user to the sales rep persona, and we've populated the sales rep field to, in this case, Jim, since this user is tied to the data that is has a value of Jim for sales rep. So based on this user configuration, when the user logs into Easy Insight, he will only see data where the sales rep is Jim. And then when we go back to our distribute dashboard, here it's set such the user is, basically if the user goes to this URL, if Jim goes to this URL, it will apply that same persona filtering so that he only sees his subset of data. Did that help at all? All right, any other questions? All right, well, as mentioned, we will, if you email us, we can provide you with a link to the recording shortly after we conclude here. Otherwise, an email will go out on Monday containing a link to the recording for this webinar. We have a webinar coming up next week covering reporting on Basecamp with Easy Insight. And then the week after that, we'll be covering building custom fields, in particular the scripting side of things in Easy Insight. If you have any other ideas for webinars you'd like to see, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to help do what we can to better educate you on how to use Easy Insight and make sure you're able to get the reports and dashboards you need. If there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and call it a day, and hopefully everybody has a good weekend. All right. Well, thanks everyone. And as I said, have a good weekend.